the greatest sci-fi novel ever, an epic space saga, a one-of-a-kind fantasy universe. That's just a taste of the praise generations of readers have heaped on Dune, Frank Herbert's timeless masterpiece. Dune is so grand and massive. Few believed it could ever be fully adapted into a film. And true enough, many filmmakers tried and got buried under Dune's sandstorm. Just when hope was fading, the boldest hero stepped up. Back then, he'd barely been in Hollywood a decade, but his storytelling and stunning visuals already had movie fans hooked, thanks to him and his dedicated crew. Dune 2021 became a massive hit. Pandemic be damned. That Oscar season, the film cleaned up, snagging 6 golden statues. So, what did Denis Villeneuve do to pull off this impossible cinematic feat? How deep was his love for Dune? What challenges did the film crew face? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm diving into the emotional, behind-the-scenes stories of Dune, a sci-fi masterpiece, a true cinematic marvel. To grasp Denis Villeneuve's impact, we first need to understand why Dune is such a beast to adapt. Flash back to 1965, when Dune first blew readers' minds. Back then, Paul Atreides' story was hailed as pure genius. Even sci-fi legends like Arthur C. Clarke and Robert Heinlein tipped their hats to the sand. So the book became a juicy target for Hollywood's creative crowd. Plenty of folks rolled up their sleeves, ready to bring Dune to the big screen. Problem is, it was tougher than a trip to Mars. The novel's already complex, set in a world so vast it outstrips even the wildest dreamers' imaginations. Dune isn't just Paul Atreides' journey to become the Fremen's all-powerful leader and avenge his family. It's also a chess game of brutal politics, religion, and big-picture themes. The story's concepts are a headache to explain. Lisan al-Gaib, Kwisatz Haderach, Bene Gesserit, the fire tests gold, adversity tests strength. In 1973, Alejandro Jodorowsky, a French director known for wild films like El Topo and The Holy Mountain, took a swing. He planned a one-of-a-kind experience, a 10-hour-plus epic with visuals and settings never seen before, all fueled by his massive love for the source material. Too far out, too risky commercially to produce. Back then, most audiences were still warming up to sci-fi, so when Dune retreated, waiting for a better moment. By the early 80s, sci-fi was starting to shine. After hits like Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Dune got a second shot. Ridley Scott, the alien mastermind, was initially set to adapt it, but bailed at the last minute. Stepping in was David Lynch, a young filmmaker with a bold, artsy style. Seen in his works like Eraserhead, 1977, and The Elephant Man. And so, Dune 1984 was born. The film screamed Lynch's style surreal scenes, hypnotic visuals. But critics and Dune fans weren't impressed. Most felt it was too chaotic, a total mess. In short, Lynch got swept away by the novel's sandstorm. Later, he wanted nothing to do with the film. He felt the studio pressured him, stifling his creative freedom. Once again, Dune fell into development hell. In the early 2000s, the Sci-Fi Channel revived Dune. They turned the Sand Planet into 2 short TV miniseries, each 3 episodes. Unlike Lynch's film, Sci-Fi's Dune got decent reviews and even nabbed an Emmy. Check out this adaptation if you're curious about Frank Herbert's world. Still, Sci-Fi's version had flaws, failing to capture the novel's futuristic scope. It even simplified a key character to a bare-bones version. Above all, it didn't gain much fame. This just shows how tough adapting Dune is, even with modern filmmaking. Between 2008 and 2011, 2 directors considered remaking Dune. Both were talented, but backed out for various reasons. It wasn't until 2016 that a game changer happened. Legendary Pictures had held Dune's adaptation rights for 5 years, but couldn't find the right director. Enter Denis Villeneuve, rising from the chaos. He'd only been in Hollywood 3 years, with a pile of projects on his plate. And maybe that's why the Canadian filmmaker was extra cautious about tackling Dune. He even doubted he could pull it off. But behind that humility was a deep love for the Sand Planet. At 13, Denis devoured the 600-plus page novel and was completely hooked. A shy kid, he and his close friends spent summer afternoons sketching Dune storyboards for their dream film. Now a renowned director, Denis still keeps those drawings. During sleepless teenage nights, he'd imagine Paul Atreides alone in the desert, trudging toward refuge among the Freemen. That love for Dune grew in the director's heart, exploding when he shared his vision with Legendary's production team. Right then, they knew this reserved man was the captain they'd been searching for. Even with the green light, Denis didn't jump in. He honed his craft with 2 other sci-fi films, Arrival and Blade Runner 2049. When both films won over audiences and skyrocketed his fame, he was finally ready to face the sandstorm. Dune is my world. I know what to do, the Canadian filmmaker said. 2 years after signing on, Denis Villeneuve shocked fans by announcing he'd split Dune into 2 parts. That meant a production process stretching up to 2 years. A risky move would the first half succeed enough to greenlight the second, especially with Dune's rocky history. Still, Denis's vision was incredibly promising. As mentioned, the Sand Planet's too vast for one film to cover. Denis even told the studio he'd quit if he couldn't make the second part. His artistic grit shone through as he vowed his film would stand apart from predecessors, especially David Lynch's Watching Lynch's Dune. I remember being pretty hyped. I liked some details but felt uneasy about others, like I was half satisfied. I told myself there had to be an adaptation with a totally different vibe. Denis shared that to realize his vision, he simplified details, keeping the story centered on Paul Atreides' perspective. He cut deep book dialogue that didn't fit on screen, ensuring the language was clear and minimal. He and his team also created a unique sign language for Paul and Lady Jessica. It showed their seamless bond clearly, avoiding the book's telepathic dialogue, not stopping there. Denis streamlined complex book elements like house rivalries and politics to focus on Paul's coming of age. He kept the film tight by reducing or tweaking some characters. For example, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen speaks less, exuding power and danger just by his presence. The advisors of houses Atreides and Harkonnen get less screen time, but the biggest character change is Lady Jessica. She's not just a shadowy nun like in the book, but rises as a warrior, protecting her son and even fighting alongside Paul. With the script done, Denis still needed top-notch actors to bring his envisioned characters to life. The most critical role, no surprise, was Paul Atreides, the story's heart. Fun fact, Denis instantly pictured Timothée Chalamet for the role, seeing the French-American actor as the perfect fit, a young face hiding an old soul. The 56-year-old director built the cast around Timothée, with Hollywood heavyweights like Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Stellan Skarsgård, and Josh Brolin signing on. Notably, Denis personally called nearly the entire cast to pitch the project. Reactions varied, some grilled him with questions, others jumped in eagerly. But they all shared one thing: trust in the Canadian filmmaker's talent. When he called, I was skiing on a mountain. No joke, he's one of my top 3 favorite directors. So I rushed down, got to my hotel. I Skyped him right away, had to say yes. It's like winning the lottery. Jason Momoa, who plays Warrior Duncan Idaho, shared about his collaborator. At this point, the framework was set. Denis Villeneuve's Dune spaceship just needed its engine to launch. That job fell to Patrice Vermette, the production designer who's been with Denis since their indie film days, had a knowing his friend's dream. Vermette poured his heart into the sets, aiming for hyper-realistic spaces that connect viewers with the character's world. So, he and Denis agreed to minimize green screens, focusing on real sets, props, and on-location shooting. Vermette spent 7 months pre-production crafting a handbook he jokingly called the Bible, detailing everything visual costumes, props, and epic set designs. This visual Bible let departments communicate easily, as everyone knew their tasks. Sounds simple, but it was no walk in the park. Like the tech-shunning people of Dune's universe, the film's visuals faced a similar challenge. Specifically, the team was told to avoid internet references while working. The problem is, online you drown in a sea of generic images. So everyone's influenced by the same few styles, which is why so many modern designs look alike. Vermette explained, instead of social media, the visual team spent days in libraries, drawing inspiration from ancient books. That hard work birthed unique details straight from the novel, like military spacecraft, giant sandworms, and still suits recycling human sweat. There's tons of cool stories about those elements. But to keep this video tight, I'll focus on the two biggest, most vital settings Caladan: Paul Atreides' birthplace and Arrakis, the perilous sand planet. For Caladan, Denis and Vermette agreed the planet should feel moody, mirroring Paul's mindset early in the film. They drew from Canada, Denis's homeland, where fall brings thick fog and heavy clouds that seem to swallow mountains and cliffs. Barren Norwegian pine forests add to the somber vibe. But the crew didn't pick Canada, opting instead for Norway's rugged northwest border. Its ancient architecture and gloomy weather evoked the melancholy Denis wanted. While the exteriors screamed European grit, the Atreides castle interiors drew from medieval Japanese aesthetics. Soft lighting, intricately carved walls, and minimalist patterns conveyed the Atreides' power without a single line of dialogue. This clear design direction gave audiences all they needed about the mighty Atreides' background in just the first 20 minutes. They're noble and revered, but face a farewell to their home, likely forever. That's the power of cinema. Unlike rainy, brooding Caladan, Arrakis is harsh and unforgiving, ready to crush anyone who dares step foot. Not just a brutal test for the Atreides. The sand planet was a puzzle for the visual team, as its architecture is epic in the book. Whoever controls Arrakis is one step from the Imperial throne. To bring Arrakis to life, Vermette's team worked tirelessly, studying Egyptian pyramids, Upawatiri bunkers, and rugged 1950s American designs. These structures appear throughout Paul's Arrakis journey, creating tension and a sense of looming danger. A detail you might miss: the walls where the Atreides reside aren't just decorated. They're inscribed with Freeman writing, using a language created just for the film. It shows how deeply Denis Villeneuve and his team invested in every detail. But that's not all. Arrakis is brutal, with storms raging over 500 km/h, obliterating everything in their path. So, the crew had to carefully pick a location with endless deserts and rugged, defensible rock formations. After scouting several countries, Denis and Vermette found their promised land, a vast desert between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. By chance, Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker was filming nearby, so both crews coordinated to avoid overlap. In the end, the crew's relentless efforts paid off, with Arrakis' scenes delivering a jaw-dropping experience. All this is just a fraction of the journey to create 2021's cinematic masterpiece. There's still costumes, cinematography, post-production, and release to cover. Every aspect is fascinating and emotional, worthy of its own video. Dune is truly a priceless cinematic experience. It doesn't just deliver, it amplifies feelings you can only get in a theater. And Dune Part 2 keeps that spirit always, doing even more. Denis Villeneuve is a gem of cinema, and I just hope he stays healthy and keeps treating us to these visual and auditory feasts. Want more videos on Dune's behind the scenes? If so, what aspects should we dive into? Drop your thoughts and feelings below. Now, I'm off to join the Fedaykin and fight in Muad'Dib's holy war. See you in the next videos.